In 1993, the movie Groundhog's Day was released. The movie is about the character Phil Connors, and every day, Phil wakes up to live the same day over and over. No matter how he ends the day, he wakes up right back where he started as if nothing happened at all. He's stuck in a time loop, and the time loop persists even past death itself. He can drive off a cliff, jump off a building, make himself some nice toast in the bath, but no matter what he does, he always wakes up right back where he started, with all the memories of his previous deaths, unable to escape the repeating torture of living the same day over and over again for eternity. To the audience, Groundhog's Day is a family comedy. To Phil Connors, it's a never-ending nightmare. One of the most commonly used tropes in fiction is the concept of infinite life, the ability to cheat death itself and live forever. But for as much as it's shown, the ability to live forever is hardly ever shown as a positive. In fact, immortality is often shown as a never-ending torment. In Harlan Ellison's short story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the last humans on Earth are tormented by a rogue AI named Am that is so advanced, it has the power to torture and keep the humans alive forever. The only escape from the infinite torture the humans find is in death itself, killing each other to spare each other an eternity of suffering, except for one human who lives, who is turned into an inhuman slime-like monster incapable of moving for the rest of time. The ending of The Green Mile shows the main character outliving every person he's ever known and loved, doomed to live in the failing body of an old decrepit man, incapable of death. Even the very concept of hell is the oldest example of an infinite torture. While the concept of immortality can often be seen as horrific and terrifying, very rarely do we see its brother, infinite death, dying only to come back as if nothing happened at all. The ending to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5, and yes, I swear this is relevant, sees the main antagonist, Diavolo, punished to forever live out every conceivable way of dying for infinity. However, infinite death is rarely ever seen for as terrifying as it is, experiencing death every day of your life only to come back and live through it again, on loop for infinity. Although it's rare to see the concept of infinite death portrayed in books, movies, and TV, there's one medium where infinite death is incredibly common. However, it's not called infinite death, it's called respawning. Team Fortress 2 is a game released in 2007. You play as either a member of Red Team or Blue Team. Your only goal is to kill each other and prevent the other team from winning. You can be incinerated, exploded, electrocuted, turned into Swiss cheese, but every time you come back, you respawn. For as terrifying as it would be to be Phil Connors in Groundhog's Day, the mercenaries of TF2 might just be stuck in one of the most horrific death loops possible. Phil Connors at least managed to escape his time loop, but the characters of TF2 are destined to kill and maim each other for the rest of time. To the player, TF2 is a goofy and fun FPS game, but to the mercs, it's a never-ending hell with no chance of escape. That is, assuming the characters in the game are sentient. In the game of TF2, respawning is a gameplay mechanic, and none of the characters are aware of the infinite death loop. Respawning is as essential to the experience as health and ammo pickups. But what if respawning became more than just a simple gameplay mechanic? What if someone made a film set in the TF2 universe where the characters were actually resuscitated from death, and they were aware of it for every second? Source Filmmaker. Most of you probably know it from goofy memes and whatever the hell this is. Created by Valve, SFM is a program that allows its users to create 3D animations using custom models and assets. And while a lot of the time, Source Filmmaker is used to create the type of film I can't talk about on my channel, occasionally, you'll get a group of talented and passionate individuals who come together to create a true passion project. Which brings me to today's topic. Emesis Blue is a psychological horror film set in the TF2 universe created by Fortress Films, and released in early 2023 after years of hard work. Yes, the same universe where Amelia Earhart canonically died wearing a hot dog costume is the same universe where this film takes place. However, Emesis Blue is a genuinely interesting and intriguing film, and one of the biggest passion projects to ever come out of the community, clocking in at almost 2 hours. It's also a film that leaves a lot of its questions unanswered, which is why I'm here. Today, I'll be doing an extensive breakdown of Emesis Blue and solving all of its mysteries. However, this video should not be a substitute for watching Emesis Blue itself. The film isn't gonna have the same punch with my nerd voice analyzing every last detail, so I highly recommend watching the film yourself before coming back here. I pinky promise it's worth watching for yourself. And I'll be waiting here while you finish. Fortress Films have created something truly fantastic here, and I want to share it with you. So for everyone who's ready, grab some popcorn, a soft drink, and some candy. Trust me, you're gonna need it. The script for this video is only slightly longer than a Dream apology tweet. But before we jump into the movie, if you pay attention throughout the movie, you'll see that the various characters will wear actual in-game cosmetics. And if you want to acquire the Emesis drip, boy do I know the place, because this video is sponsored by Manco Store. Manco Store is a website for buying and selling items from TF2, Counter-Strike, and more, and I can personally vouch for it. However, if you're a lot like me, you do a lot more of the buying and not enough of the selling part. Gone are the days of getting kicked out of Starbucks for demanding the strange mad milk. I know you're hiding it in there somewhere. You can just go to Manco Store and buy the milk there. And since there's no trade hold on items, you can give the milk to all of your friends. Riddle me this, would you rather spend $7.50 on a unique bison on the in-game store, $8 on a strange professional killstreak bison on the Steam market, or just $6.73 on the Manco Store? Because the prices on Manco Store are significantly cheaper than the dumpy Steam market. P.U. Manco Store also takes a variety of payment options like cards, PayPal, crypto, and more. But do not try to pay with Chuck E. Cheese tokens. I repeat, we do not take Chuck E. Cheese tokens. They say that 90% of gamblers quit before hitting it big, and that's because 90% of gamblers used the link in the description of this video and bought some bomb-ass cosmetics, because there is absolutely no gambling to this site. Simply buy what you want with no strings attached. And while you're over there, check out the giveaway for the Burning Flames team captain, a legendary hat that I made a legendary video on. Yes, I just shilled my own video during a sponsor, but pinky promise before you go watch it to check out Manco Store using my referral link in the description. Thanks for sponsoring the video, Manco Store. Now let's dive into Emesis Blue. The film starts, and we immediately see how respawning works in this universe. After death, instead of just popping back into existence, you go through a respawn machine that revives you inside of a respawn chamber. But it doesn't take long for the audience to see just how morbid this machine really is. We see 4 trials of the respawn machine performed on the same man, with each trial progressively getting more disturbing as they continue. On the first trial, the doors open, and the man says, "It's eternity in there," before collapsing to the ground. Remember this line for later. It's going to be important. On the second trial, we get to see the physical toll respawning takes on its patients. We see a close-up of the man, and he's missing his eyes, and he's bleeding from every orifice on his face. In the third trial, when the door opens, we can see the subject violently shaking. We get a close-up, but we can't make out any details on their face. And for the fourth trial, did you catch that? The respawn chamber is coated in a substance that you can't quite make out, and just as the room is nearly completely covered, the screen turns red, and a black shape covers the left window. This tape has been censored, and we can only imagine what happened to the respawn patient that was so disturbing, it needed to be completely erased from the tape. Right away, we can see what makes the concept of the respawn machine so terrifying. The subject's first line implies that the wait between respawns feels quite literally like eternity. And honestly, I feel that. Not only that, but when you come back, you don't come back quite the same. You could be missing body parts, so shaken by what you've seen on the other side you come back convulsing and unresponsive. And that's just the start. After the respawn trials, we're shown the title card and a date. October 31st, 1968. The camera pulls into Medic's office, where we see him violently shaking, in the midst of a nightmare. In his dream, we see what looks to be the aftermath of a TF2 battle, as the bodies of the mercs are dumped into water. Then, we see a vision of a tunnel of bodies, with an imposing figure in black in the background. Then, the respawn machine door opens, and a wave of blood spills out. This is the first of many film references we'll see in Emesis Blue. This particular shot of blood coming from the door is an allusion to the elevator scene in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Throughout the film, we'll see many other references to other films, and some are even used to help with the narrative. For now though, all we know is that something is terribly wrong with the respawn machine. The medic has been suffering from visual hallucinations as well as having a hyper-realistic depiction of a panic attack. The dark and ominous figure that's been haunting Medic's dreams is revealed to be a man in a dark coat and a plague doctor's mask. However, there is no plague doctor in the room, just Scout. Medic reaches for his glasses and we can read a news article that states the governor, Jules Archibald, has been kidnapped. The scene changes and we see Medic giving Scout a checkup. Seems the two are good friends. It also turns out that Medic isn't the only one suffering from these hallucinations.
So tell me about it.
Well, I was in the bathroom, right? And as I was brushing my teeth, all my teeth started to fall out. There was blood all over the basin. It was horrible.
Dreams about your teeth rotting or falling out are a common occurrence. In between bouts of cocaine, Sigmund Freud theorized that perhaps these teeth dreams signify your subconscious's sexual needs and desires. But unless this is an elaborate reference to the fuck it of Dickin, I don't think this interpretation works for Scout. However, another theory states that these dreams could signify a feeling of helplessness or loss of control.
Are you worried about something?
Yeah, actually. You ever get the feeling like you're being watched?
What do you mean?
When I went to bed last night, I could swear there was someone standing outside my window.
Oh, don't be ridiculous. Someone was just passing by.
Doc, I was on the second floor.
Have you spoken to your mother about this?
She says it's all in my head.
Well, there's nothing wrong with your teeth. Here, take one of these tonight. This should help.
Come on, Doc. I don't need this stuff.
I think you do, Scout.
Medic hands Scout Valium pills. Valium, otherwise known as diazepam, is a medication used for anxiety, seizures, and alcohol withdrawal. Medic, seeing how paranoid and anxious Scout is, prescribes him the medication. Throughout the film, the medic will chug these pills like Flintstone's vitamin gummies. So it's obvious he has experience with the medication. It also makes sense for Scout to feel so helpless, anxious, and paranoid.
You must be thrilled you're moving back in with her.
After being laid off? Are you kidding me? I'm gonna sue the hell out of Blue for what they did to me.
Well, you wouldn't be the first.
Doc, if they ever hit you with something, you hit back twice as hard, you hear me?
From what we can glean from the conversation, Scout has been fired from his job as a Blue mercenary. Scout is in a transitional period of his life, and from the way Scout speaks of Blue, it's not a good one. Suddenly, the medic's collection of tapes falls over, and it's not entirely clear what knocked them over yet. We see a whole bunch of Medic's movies, and each one of them ties back into the narrative. So let's look through each one individually. The first tape is The King in Yellow. The book is a collection of short stories that center around a play that causes the reader to go mad. It is one of the most famous depictions of an information hazard in fiction. Or, rather, merely having the knowledge of something can cause one to go mad. The second tape is Faust. The story centers around the titular Faust as he makes a deal with the demon Mephistopheles to gain his power. This story is one of the most famous examples of making a deal with the devil. The third tape is The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, one of the most revolutionary films in the horror genre. In the movie, Dr. Caligari brainwashes a man named Cesar to commit murders while he sleepwalks. A man who becomes an unhinged psychopath while unconscious. The fourth tape is The Grinning Face, a movie about a man with a disfigured face who reveals it to a shocked audience as part of a circus act. Also, it inspired the character of the Joker.
Well, I'm the Joker, baby!
The fifth tape is The Invisible Man. After a scientific experiment causes his skin to go invisible, a man goes on a murderous rampage, mad with power. The sixth tape is Metropolis, a dystopian film where a lower class begins to rebel against the rich elite that rule them. And finally, the movie M, This movie centers around a child murderer on the loose, as a band of criminals gather together to catch the man. In the movie, a man chalks the letter M onto his hand and uses it to mark the killer so he can be caught. Scout takes a special interest in this movie specifically, and when Medic isn't looking, he pockets it for himself. As the two walk out of the medical bay, they hear a loud crash from behind them and see that one of the medical curtains has been pushed over. But there's nothing in the room that could have caused it. The two walk out, which leads us to the first chapter. Chapter 1 starts with Soldier sitting in a car. We get a better look at the kidnapped governor. Jules Archibald is a reimagined version of the civilian from Team Fortress Classic. Whoever Jules is, they are powerful and they have strong ties to the mercenaries. In the pouring rain, Soldier sees a figure staring at him from the distance. It's hard to make out the details of the figure, but you can make out a collar of a jacket and the shape of an army helmet on his head.
He's here. I need my... What the hell are you doing? Give me that before you hurt yourself.
You told me to keep a lookout.
I told you to wait in the car.
Look, what if it's an ambush?
He's alone. It shouldn't take long.
That Rusky's twice your size.
I just need to make him talk.
What if he doesn't?
Just keep an eye out for the police.
While Scout has been let go from Blue, Soldier and Spy are still employed and working for Builders League. They're trying to recover the kidnapped Archibald, and they're here to confront the Heavy in an alleyway and intercept a handoff that could help.
Builders League.
You look lost, comrade, and that suit doesn't fit you.
I did not ask for your opinion.
So tell me the facts. Who's the handoff? Who's your new employer?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Who kidnapped Archibald? Was it you? You know the price of betrayal, friend. They'll throw you up against the wall for this. What's on the briefcase?
It does not concern you.
Hand it over.
You want my briefcase?
From Spy and Heavy's brief conversation, we can learn that Heavy is also a former employer of Builders League. But, just like Scout, the Heavy has been let go and needs new employment. Whatever it is he's doing for pay now, it involves an important but mysterious briefcase, the contents of which and the person to receive it, we don't know right now.
This is 189 reporting a 503 to local cemetery. The vehicle in question is a black hearse.
10-9, say again. A black hearse.
10-4, that is correct.
189, is this a joke? Who steals a friggin' hearse at this hour? Well, oh, you think that's funny, 189?
That wasn't me.
Oh crap.
Who the hell is that?
As the fight with Heavy continues, Soldier looks into the rain obliviously. In a blink and you'll miss it moment, we can see an ambulance drive by. Medic is driving with Scout in the passenger seat. Immediately after the ambulance is out of sight, the black hearse from the radio transmission pulls into the curb.
Hey, Stalingrad! Eat this! You're welcome.
You idiot! He was our only lead, and now he's dead.
Oh, so you were just talking?
We have to get out of here.
What about the body?
I left my camera in the car. Fetch it for me. Now.
The person in the hearse is revealed to be the Plague Doctor from Medic's dreams. This entity isn't just a figment of Medic's imagination, but a real physical being. The Plague Doctor attacks Spy in reference to a scene from the movie Seven. The Plague Doctor runs off, but not before taking the mysterious briefcase. This mysterious Plague Doctor was the handoff for the briefcase.
Hey, Doc,
Yes?
what did you mean when you said, I'm not the first? You talking about the accident?
There have been others.
You telling me that this has happened before? Doc, what is wrong with the respawn machine?
It doesn't always work like it's supposed to. Some get stuck inside trying to come through.
What the hell are you talking about, Doc?
I've only seen it happen once. On the front lines. He came through screaming horribly. When I ran in to see what happened,
What did you see, Doc?
You don't want to know.
It appears there's been a specific accident with the respawn machine that has led to Scout being injured, anxious, and let go from Builders League. And according to Medic, Scout is far from the first. In the intro to the movie, we see just what happens when the respawn machine malfunctions. Just how often does this happen, and what keeps going wrong? In the driveway to Scout's home, we see the front end of the black hearse poking around from the corner. He doesn't know it yet, but Scout is in danger. What follows is one of the most tense scenes I have ever seen in a fan project, so I'll just play it out for you, then I'll dissect it once it's all finished.
So how was the doctor here?
Fine.
Did you ask him to stop by?
Tried. I feel bad for the guy.
What's the matter with him?
I think he's on something.
Du hast aber einen schönen Ball.
Dinner's ready here.
Okay, hang on.
Wie heißt du denn?
Hello?
Thanks for the ride, Doc. You sure you don't want to come in? At least say hi to Mom?
What did you... Who is this?
You really gotta get out more often, Doc.
What the hell is this? Who are you?
Hey, Ma! I'm home!
So that was a lot to take in, and I promise there's a lot more to talk about with this scene, so let's dive in. The scene starts at 9 p.m. A nice lasagna roast in the oven. Sitting on the couch, Scout plays with his iconic ball. He takes one of the Valium pills. On the TV is the movie he took from Medic's office. If you remember, the movie was about a child murderer, and the scene Scout is watching, the murderer has found his next victim. In the scene, a little girl is bouncing a ball against a pole as she is approached by the killer. Scout is just as helpless in his position as a little girl when approached by a serial killer. There's a phone call, and somehow the voice on the phone repeats the conversation between Medic and Scout. Whoever is on the other end has been recording and spying on them this whole time. Turns out Scout's paranoia wasn't completely unfounded. As he turns, we get a great shot of Scout peering through a chessboard. Notice the singular blue pawn in the middle surrounded by a bunch of red pieces. Scout is that pawn, surrounded on all sides with no escape. In the movie M, the killer whistles in the Hall of the Mountain King before going for a kill. Now, that very same whistle plays as the head of Scout's mother peers from behind the wall. If you look into the oven, you can't quite make out what it is, but it is not the same lasagna that was cooking at the start of the scene. From there, we see the figure in a white mask, and from the silhouette, you can tell that it's Pyro. Later, Medic wakes up from a nap and goes to Scout's house to check up on him. When no one answers, he makes his way inside. On the TV, M is still playing. At this point in the movie, the murderer is caught, and the band of criminals that caught him are now holding a kangaroo court for him. Beyond the body of Scout's mom, someone has drawn an M on the wall with her blood. Already, we can start to see the theme of the letter M. Remember in the movie, at one point, a character draws an M on their hand and uses it to mark the killer. After this, police begin knocking on the door, and watch what happens with Medic's eyes. Before Medic does his best impression of Chuck McGill, you can see that his eyes change color, alternating from red and blue every time he blinks. Red and blue. Medic is struggling with some sort of inner conflict here, but he knocks himself out in the process. We go back to Soldier and Spy, where the two debate what could be in the briefcase. The use of the briefcase in Emesis Blue draws parallels to the movie Pulp Fiction. In the movie, multiple plot lines center around a mysterious briefcase multiple characters are trying to get hold of. It's used as a device to push the story along, and the audience never gets to see what is inside of the briefcase. This has led to decades worth of debate over what could possibly be inside the briefcase that's so valuable. It could be cash, jewels, or jewelry. But one of the most interesting theories to me is that the briefcase contains the very soul of the crime boss Marcellus Wallace. While Soldier and Spy are off to find the Plague Doctor, Medic has another nightmare vision of himself inside a coffin in a church. The Plague Doctor watches him from the pew. Pay attention to the surroundings of this vision. The tiled floor, the candles on the coffin, the color of the room. Because there's more to this nightmare. As he wakes up, we see Medic's hands are bloodied and he's inside his office again. After he knocked himself out, looks like someone else took the driver's wheel. While he was confined by sleep, someone else was watching on. As he washes his hands, he sees a vision of himself in the mirror lunge out and attack him. Medic's hallucinations are ramping up in intensity. Something in his psyche has gone seriously wrong. Afterwards, someone slides a folder under his door. He can't see from who. Inside the folder is a key and 4 photographs. The 4th photo we can't quite make out, but the first 3 that we do see are Scout peering into the doorway of Medic's office, Scout walking back to his home after the ambulance ride, and Scout asleep in his 2nd-story bedroom. Earlier, Scout said he felt as if he was being watched in his sleep, and it turns out his suspicions were entirely correct. Whatever is watching the Scout is doing so from the 2nd-story floor, and it's not just Scout being watched. On the phone, the muffled voice of Scout cries out. You can't quite make out what he's saying, but I believe he's saying, "Why'd you kill her?" in reference to his mom.
Hello?
Hey, Doc?
Oh, thank God, Scout! Are you alright?
I know it's late, but mind if I ask you something?
What? Scout, where are you?
You ever get the feeling like you're being watched?
What the hell have you done with him?
I think the Plague Doctor kidnapped Scout to set Medic up. He wants Medic to go somewhere, and that somewhere just so happens to be Conager's slaughterhouse. Police are beginning their investigation on the murder of Scout's mom, and while they do, Soldier and Spy are snooping around as well. Digging through Scout's files, Soldier finds some interesting papers. The first is a termination notice. To whom this may concern, due to the recent investigation into the events of October 24th, 1968, the Board of Executives has made the decision to terminate your employment with the Builders League United Corporation. In accordance with Article 13, Section B54 of your contract, you may not be entitled to compensation, as the board cannot be held responsible for any injuries or loss of life on site. Respawn units carry a 99% success rate, and insurance does not cover the 1% chance of malfunction. And the second paper is a medical report. Upon respawn, patient SC-10498, Jeremy E., was found unconscious and convulsing from apparent seizures. Post-recovery, patient showed signs of reduced speech, inability to perform simple tasks, and symptoms relating to schizophrenia. Patient was dismissed under the protection of a legal guardian. Diagnosis: brain atrophy. So this was the incident that led to Scout being fired. Scout physically and mentally handicapped due to a respawn glitch. After the incident, Scout has an IQ of 48, which is significantly lower than the standard 85 to 115. On top of impairing his IQ, Scout is also suffering from brain atrophy, a condition that causes you to lose connections and neurons to important brain functions. So after being forced to die and respawn repeatedly, Scout is rewarded with life-changing disabilities and absolutely no monetary compensation for them. It makes sense why Scout is so angry at Builders League and wants to sue. It's also interesting to note that the paper describes Scout as having symptoms similar to schizophrenia. Perhaps prolonged use of the respawn machine is what's causing the mercs to have these visions, and these symptoms aren't exclusive to Scout. Medic himself conducted the examination, and what else to prescribe Scout other than the same Valium pills he's been chugging this whole time? And speaking of Medic's hallucinations, we learn whose blood the Medic's hands were coated with.
I'm telling you here! How did he escape? What was he driving?
Look, I think you've asked enough questions here, pal.
Ambulance!
See, look, he needs a doctor, so why don't you just...
No, he was driving a goddamn ambulance.
All right, everyone step outside. Too many people in here, for Christ's sake.
Soldier.
Get in the car.
It appears whoever took the wheel after Medic knocked himself out went on a murderous spree. The same part of himself that Medic was trying to contain up until the very moment he smacked his head on the counter. Medic arrives at the Conager slaughterhouse, and seeing as Emesis Blue is a horror movie, it's only fair that it should take place in the scariest place known to man. Two Fort. Out front, we see the black hearse engulfed in flames, and as Medic crosses the bridge, they are watched through a scope, but never shot at. While Medic is off at the slaughterhouse, Spy and Soldier burst into Medic's office to investigate. Spy sees the photo of Scout and the slaughterhouse message.
Must have been a fight or something. My God. It's as late as a victim.
It's a model, you idiot.
This is worse than I thought. You know, it made me think a bunch of this stuff. Said I was seeing things.
And did the medication work?
I don't know. I never took any of it.
Right.
So it appears not only Medic and Scout are taking Valium, but everyone who comes to the respawn machine is told to take the medication. Medication that is starting to seem more and more suspicious as time goes on.
No, don't!
Hello?
Hello? Who is this?
Who am I? What the hell are you? Who is this?
What?
It's him.
Listen to me, punk. You're not gonna think this is funny when I strangle you to death with your own stethoscope.
Who is this?
It's the voice of God, you son of a bitch, and I'm coming for you!
If Medic is off at the slaughterhouse, then who was phone? Looks like whoever was using the voices of Scout and Medic earlier just used the same trick on Soldier. In fact, this whole series of events was a setup to get the mercs to the slaughterhouse, kidnapping Scout to force Medic, and now framing Scout's kidnapping and stolen briefcase on Medic to force Soldier and Spy. Someone has business with Conager's slaughterhouse, and that person is whoever is under the Plague Doctor costume. Meanwhile, at the slaughterhouse, Medic successfully climbs onto the balcony, but while up there, they briefly catch a glimpse of something making animal-like noises, with long, slender fingers poking around from the corner. That was no normal Heavy. It appears after dying, Heavy was revived with the power of Alex Jones supplements and is turned into an absolute beefcake. His build is taller, and he possesses superhuman strength. This version of Heavy is a reference to Mr. X of the Resident Evil franchise, and just like the source material, he's going to be a dangerous and recurring threat. After their encounter with Heavy, Medic's medigun is broken, and thus, he has no way of healing Scout when he finds him. He wanders through the slaughterhouse. In this shot, on the left side of the frame, you can see a hidden M symbol. On the table is Scout's ball and an ashed cigarette, smoke still coming out from the end. From here, Medic sees the same red M that was drawn on the walls of Scout's home.
Wait, Scout! I'm trying to help you!
If I had a gun, I'd shoot you, you sick bastard!
Despite Medic's best efforts to save him, when Scout sees Medic, his first reaction is to punch Medic, curse him, and run away. This leads us to believe that Scout thinks Medic is responsible for the death of his mother and his own kidnapping. And knowing how Medic can lose control of his own sanity and resort to murder, it isn't entirely out of the question. However, we can't know for certain if Medic really is the one responsible, especially because both have been suffering from visual hallucinations. Scout stumbles into and is promptly shot by the Conager brothers, Maynard and Zed. Neither of these brothers are the engineer of TF2, Del Conager, who is strangely absent from the scene.
You look lost, boy. Now, brother, I do believe that you were the one who chained out that coffin.
Indeed I did, brother. Up to specification.
So how'd he get out? Dumbass. Well, go on then. Say something. Well, whoever let you out, I'm glad they did, because I like company.
Why does he get to have all the fun?
As Scout is abducted by Zed, Soldier and Spy finally arrive at the slaughterhouse, and Soldier has brought his iconic rocket launcher, which Spy promptly uses to destroy his own car. After blowing up his own ride like a dumbass, Spy is shot at by the same scoped figure that watched Medic cross the bridge earlier, but they miss, finally proving once and for all that Sniper is a perfectly balanced class. As Soldier and Spy work their way into the slaughterhouse, Medic is pinned in place as Scout is being tortured by one of the Conagers with an electric drill, both the piercing sound of the drill and Scout's guttural screams echoing through the room. We see Medic open his eyes, and once more, the red and blue lighting shows us that Medic is trying to contain that inward struggle. He reaches for the Wrangler as the phone rings.
Hey, Del, you haven't called me in a while. How's Dust Bowl working out, brother?
Dust Bowl is gone.
Gone?
You heard me. There's nothing left of it.
How?
We're still trying to figure that out. It doesn't look good.
What about my little brother? Is he alright?
Listen, I'm coming to the slaughterhouse now. Is the briefcase secure?
Sure. I swear to God, if anything happens to my brother, I'm gonna...
Shut up and listen to me. Forget the test subjects. I think we've been compromised.
You're so goddamn inconsiderate.
Shut up! Did he get out?
Yeah, who knows how?
The more you move, the more it's gonna hurt.
Look, when are you gonna be back? We shouldn't have to deal with this.
Don't let the briefcase out of your sight.
And what about my brother?
So Del Conager is missing, and so is everyone in Dust Bowl. I believe this interaction serves as a reference to Fortress Films' other SFM project, Spy's Disguise, from 4 years earlier. The short tells the story of a blue spy who gains the ability to disguise as and harness the abilities of engineers' buildings. The blue spy and red engineer then fight to the death. Notably, earlier in the film, we see the red engineer disable the respawn machine, and later he and all of his teammates are killed. Permanently. We can infer from this phone call and its allusion to Spy's Disguise that Del Conager is dead, but no one in the slaughterhouse even knows. Medic hates Five Nights at Freddy's, so he unplugs the telephone and prepares to go for the kill in a sequence of events that parallels the movie No Country for Old Men. In the movie, the character Anton Chigurh strangles a police officer. Anton is one of the most terrifying and accurate portrayals of a psychopath put to film ever. He has no thoughts about killing anyone, or simply just deems it fate. Despite not seeming like it on the surface, Anton and Medic have quite a bit in common. After being shot and killed with a shotgun, something truly bizarre happens to Medic's body. Medic rapidly recovers from death itself, and despite fumbling in hand-to-hand combat before, he easily subdues the Conager brother and kills him. Before, we saw Medic knock himself out on a countertop before killing a police officer, and now he kills Maynard with no second thought and even takes joy in it. This Medic acts more like Anton Chigurh than the timid, soft-spoken Medic that we've gotten used to this far. This constant struggle Medic fights within himself seems to be containing this murderous psychopathic alter ego, and it can overpower Medic and take the wheel only after he's unconscious, and even persists past death. It's almost like this supernatural alter ego is something that's possessing him. After killing Maynard, Medic dispatches of Zed using the Wrangler in reference to the film Falling Down, and after murdering the Conagers and retrieving the briefcase, whatever is possessing Medic relinquishes control, and he comes back to his senses, gazing at Scout's deformed and mutilated body.
I am never going to find Archibald in this excrement.
Back in the war, we would spend weeks stuck in wet dugouts like this, with water up to your ankles. They were built only 6 feet wide, but they could go on for miles.
Kill me now.
You have no comprehension of what you're getting into.
I have a pretty damn good idea.
We should have called for backup.
And what the hell do you think I'm doing? I just saved you from a bullet to the head.
And who was it that told them we were coming, Who's been killing our leads and getting the police involved?
You have compromised this entire operation.
What about all those pictures? That's evidence we can use, right?
They were in the car, you idiot. Now I have nothing. Because of you, you stupid bastard, you amateur.
I hope you can swim because you're going right back out the way you came.
You gonna shoot me?
We're done. I don't care what wretched battalion you think you come from. You are not coming with me.
You shot one of your own before?
Get out of my way.
Archibald teach you that?
The two are lit with red and blue, signifying a divide between the two as Spy threatens Soldier with his revolver. Spy's response to Soldier calls his military experience into question. In the lore of TF2, Soldier never was actually, well, a soldier. A quote from the official Soldier bio reads, "Though he wanted desperately to fight in World War II, the Soldier was rejected from every branch of the US military. Undaunted, he bought his own ticket to Europe. After arriving and finally locating Poland, the Soldier taught himself how to load and fire a variety of weapons before embarking on a Nazi killing spree, for which he was awarded several medals that he designed and made himself. His rampage ended immediately upon hearing about the end of the war in 1949. However, Emesis Blue takes multiple artistic liberties with TF2's lore. While in the game universe, he's a maniac who went on a killing spree in post-war Poland, in this universe, he might actually be a veteran of World War II, conscripted into the war between Red and Blue by Jules Archibald, the kidnapped governor. And from the way Soldier refers to Archibald and his connection to Spy, Archibald seems like the type who wouldn't care about killing his own men.
You better drop that rifle before I come over there and put my foot up your...
Who the hell is out there?
Looks like Ray Charles traded the piano for an M40.
What?
I've got an idea. What are you, blind? Come on, right here. Take your best.
I'm at a payphone trying to go home.
The two walk past the mortally wounded sniper, electing not to shoot him and instead let him bleed to death slowly. Walking up the sewer stairs, Soldier is confronted by a familiar face. During their encounter with Pyro, Spy is shot in the leg and Soldier is forced to leave him behind as a metal gate closes behind him. On the other side of the gate, Soldier attempts to save the spy, but the strength of the gate is too strong to open with his bare hands. When he stands up, we can hear and see someone strangely familiar.
I want to know what the hell is going on here.
I don't know. That's probably mincemeat by now.
I've already lost one man, not gonna lose another.
In the distance, we see Soldier talking to an unknown person, but how could there be two instances of Soldier at the same time? Soldier also comes across a mutated Scout with long, slender limbs and freakishly large fingers. Scout's termination notice stated that there was a 1% chance of malfunction during the respawn process, and this mutation looks to be the result of a failed spawn attempt. To escape the mutated Scout, Soldier pries a crowbar from a nearby door and hurls it at the other soldier, which clangs off his helmet. Not only can these two soldiers see each other, but they can also directly interact with each other. Just like Scout and Medic, Soldier is capable of suffering from visual and auditory hallucinations as well, and in this hallway, he has a vision of himself in a trench in World War II, with the tight halls of the corridor reminding him of the tight and stress-inducing trenches of warfare. Keep in mind, this movie was created on decade-old archaic software because, goddamn, this shot looks clean. In his vision, Soldier sees the Plague Doctor and the Medic playing chess together. To his left, Spy calls out to him, saying there's nothing for him here, before being incinerated by Pyro. He runs and sees Scout get shot in the head climbing out of the trench. Soldier attempts to comfort the dying Scout in his last moments, but the Scout begins to morph into the lanky mutated Scout. Earlier, Spy questions whether or not Soldier had any experience in the military, but this scene shows to me that in this universe, Soldier actually fought in World War II. I believe this is a PTSD-induced hallucination brought on by the stress the slaughterhouse is putting him through and how similar it is to the war he fought in. He envisions Spy getting engulfed in flames by Pyro due to the guilt he feels for leaving him behind. And unlike the other mercenaries, Soldier hasn't been taking the Valium to reduce the anxiety and calm his brain. Eventually, he breaks free from the hallucination. Soldier sees Demo Man locked behind a cage, and the two strike up a conversation that should sound familiar to those that have been paying attention.
Hey. I'm looking for Jules Archibald.
Who's asking?
His rescue.
Afraid you're gonna be disappointed.
I want to know what the hell is going on here. I want to know what the hell is going on here.
I don't know. That's probably mincemeat by now.
I've already lost one man, not gonna lose another. I've already lost one man, not gonna lose another.
Then you're a dead man.
You haven't lost both eyes yet, Cyclops, so tell me what you've seen.
Gonna brothers.
They run the joint, but this is red territory.
Not anymore.
Who's the guy you were just talking to?
What guy?
So it's confirmed that Soldier is experiencing a time loop, with Demo Man oblivious to what's going on.
I don't have time for this.
Wait. You gotta get me out of here.
Why the hell should I?
There's a whole stash of guns locked in a keep upstairs. I can get you in.
Some important things to note from that chase sequence. As Soldier hurries up the stairs, you can see pools of water fill up the courtyard just like in the trench hallucination. And listen closely as Soldier is chased up the stairs by the mutated scout. Do you hear what I hear? In the background, you can hear the distorted wailing of an air raid siren, just like the model used in World War II. This all goes to prove that the soldier in this universe is an actual veteran who has flashbacks in times of stress. After the scout firmly has the crowbar implanted in his dome, you can make out a red shirt on his body. Heavy has been transformed into a giant hulking monster, Scout has morphed into a lanky and slender beast, and Demo Man is missing an entire arm. Something is seriously wrong with the mercenaries of the slaughterhouse. Something about respawning is turning them into unrecognizable, monstrous versions of themselves. And we have yet to see all of these mutated mercenaries. After their encounter with the mutated scout, Soldier and Demo make their way into the weapons keep, containing weapons and the dead bodies of a bunch of red mercenaries. On the tape recorder, we hear the voice of the sniper. He repeats the phrase, "I've seen the other side. It's longer than you think." This is a really important quote to remember, but I can't reveal why until much later. They smash the glass containing the guns, setting off the alarm, and stock up on weapons. But just as they do, the corpses in the room begin to move. A bright red glow emits from the soldier's torso as he stands up. These red zombie mercenaries appear to be more defects from the spawn machine, left to rot in the upstairs weapons bay. However, as the two make their way past the zombies to escape the weapons room, the door closes. This was a setup by an unknown party in an attempt to have the two of them killed. Soldier and Demo are able to defeat the zombies and escape the room. On the camera watching them is the logo for Helix Technologies, the same company that invented the respawn machine. Earlier in their conversation with Soldier, Demo mentioned that this place is former Red territory, but they don't own it anymore. This is Helix Technology territory now. Helix itself is trying to have the two of them killed as part of a cover-up. But why? Why have the mercenaries killed in the slaughterhouse? Why have Scout kidnapped and killed over wanting to sue Builders League? Because as long as the mercenaries are in the slaughterhouse, the public has a chance of knowing about the respawn machine. Meanwhile, Medic, recovered from his encounter with the brothers, places Scout's body into the coffin before we encounter yet another one of these mutated red mercenaries. The red medic is missing half of his face with skin grafted over it, giving him a Harvey Dent-like appearance. A medic with two faces, two personalities. Medic dispatches of the red medic with an electrical shock. Inside the red medic's office is a television. This tape shows us that Helix Technologies is trying to push beyond the respawn machine. Using some sort of mystery serum, the red medic is able to revive the heavy from death. However, this serum does not work properly, which has led to the superpowered giant that now roams the halls of the slaughterhouse. As the medic runs from the heavy, Soldier sees the body of the mutated scout is gone. Not even a crowbar through the brain is enough to keep these mutant mercenaries down.
Hello? Someone help me!
With the medic, soldier, and red demo men united, they fight for their life against the mutated heavy. Medic shoving a screwdriver into the heavy's eye provides enough time for the three to escape down the elevator with the briefcase. And just before the heavy is able to stop them from going down the elevator, you can catch a brief glimpse of the mutant scout lunging on him, allowing them to go down safely. Before, Soldier alluded to Spy and Archibald being close in their conversation. But now in this flashback scene, we see what the two are truly capable of together. Three blue mercenaries are lined up against the wall with bags over their heads, and Archibald hands Spy a revolver. It's in this scene where we're shown not just how corrupt Jules is, but Spy as well. He's willing to shoot his own colleagues on a flimsy charge, and even willing to fake hesitancy just so he can be rewarded even more for killing them. Among the people he shoots is the very same scout medic and soldier are trying to save. Shot and killed only to be respawned again to serve Archibald or repeat the same punishment. Spy is only at the slaughterhouse to serve his own selfish desires. In the background of the scene, we can also see the very same heavy that he'll go on to fight in the alley. He wakes up being splashed in gasoline. Now Spy is the one tied up on the receiving end of the revolver. And now, all of the safety and comfort of the government protecting him is gone. For the first time, we are able to see the pyro's unmasked face. Charred and burned beyond recognition, the eyes themselves melted out of their sockets. We don't know whether or not this was from an accident or another respawn malfunction, but the pyro slithers back into the darkness. This scene harkens back to Medic's tape collection with the grinning face, a story about a man who reveals his deformed face to crowds to shock and awe them. But there's something about this scene that makes it even more macabre and terrifying. Because this model of a burnt face is not the origin of the texture. The texture comes from Half-Life 2, one of the various corpse models you can see lying throughout your playthrough. This model has garnered some meme status throughout the years, famously as the hobo in the Dark RPG mod servers. But what if I told you this Half-Life 2 model still isn't the origin of the texture? The texture is actually an edited version of a photo from a medical textbook that contains the actual charred face of a burn victim. This face isn't the fictional product of an art team. It's a real body. The trio have wound up in a dungeon-like cellar. Soldier questions why Medic killed the Conager brothers. A lesson learned from his time in the military, the soldier still believes in following and taking orders from a higher-up, and the person Soldier takes orders from is Jules Archibald. While Soldier and Demo walk off, we see that Medic has stolen the Demo man's gun. Soldier talks to Demo and theorizes that the Medic has become a sleeper agent. People tasked with acting as a spy in a foreign area. They act completely normal until an activation occurs and they set upon completing their mission. While not controlled by the government, something surely is activating in Medic. Some sort of possession that has a goal it needs to accomplish. It just needs the right trigger to set off. Perhaps Medic is more like Cesar, a man under the hypnosis of Dr. Caligari. But we just don't know who's controlling Medic. Demo and Soldier walk past the cells in the dungeon. One reads, "Kill me." Another reads, "Gott helf me." German for "God help me." Another contains an abundance of tally marks scribbled onto the wall. If you look closely, you'll see that the tally marks are in the shape of an M. All over the walls of this slaughterhouse, the letter M has been consistently popping up, as well as over Scout's mom's body, perhaps as a message, but from whom and for what purpose?
You hear that? Mr. Archibald?
Oh, thank God! A rescue! You have to get me out of here before I contract something.
Are you injured, sir?
I'm about to have a heart attack. Now, are you going to stand there, or can you unlock this bloody door?
You're right where you belong, you fat crooked bastard!
Smart bloody leper, aren't you? Soldier, Why are you dragging this corpse around?
What the hell did this man call me? He's been handy, sir.
He's got none left. Are you conspiring with the enemy, soldier?
I'm just trying to help, sir.
Then stop wasting my time.
As Soldier is distracted by the wheelchair, Medic confronts himself in the mirror, or rather, the part of himself that he's been trying to contain.
You want me to do it, don't you? But I won't. You can't make me. You can't make me!
While Soldier was focused on the wheelchair, Archibald was let out from his cell and has left the scene. Once more, Soldier is alone. Or so he thinks. A figure in an army uniform swings on a rope behind him. We've seen this man at the very beginning of the film, as he endured the repeated torture of the respawn trials. Earlier, as Soldier and Archibald bickered, Demo Man wandered off through a door that said bar. However, it was actually just a broken sign for the laboratory. But strangely enough, Demo Man actually wanders into a bar. And the person who's serving the drinks is even stranger.
Hello, Del. Long night, eh?
Longer than you think. Care for a drink?
Love one. I thought you were miles away, lad. Where you been hiding?
Who says I've been hiding?
Your brothers thought you were dead.
Relapse is a hell of a thing, ain't it?
Too right. Aye. Longer than you think.
It is.
What?
When they figured out how to bring us back, some of us would tell stories about what we saw on the other side. We saw old friends, family, mostly strangers. I spoke to my grandfather. He's been dead for 30 years.
What'd he tell you?
It's eternity in there.
This scene has so much to unpack. The setting itself is another homage to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, based on the fantastic Stephen King novel. The story follows the Torrance family. Father Jack, Mother Wendy, and son Danny. Jack has been given the position of caretaker for the Overlook Hotel over winter, and while he cares for the hotel, his family will be the only people inside of the building. But the Overlook Hotel is no normal place. The Overlook is a place that's haunted by the spirits that inhabit it. The isolation, the stress of writing, and his short temper make Jack easily manipulated by the spirits, and they convince Jack to kill his family. To be in the Overlook Hotel drives one to madness, as the hotel is a place between life and death itself, where the living communicate and interact with the deceased. Throughout Emesis Blue, many set pieces and shots parallel that of The Shining. I'm just wondering why they didn't include the scene of the guy getting his nads gobbled by a furry. The bar Demo Man has found himself in is also a place between life and death, just like the Overlook. A stasis of sorts. Immediately, we can see this because as Demo pulls his hands away from his face, his second eye has come back. Del is the barkeeper, which means Del really did die due to the incident in Dust Bowl, something his dialogue even alludes to. The first line Del says is one we've grown to be familiar with.
Longer than you think.
In The Shining, the recovering alcoholic Jack Torrance comes to the Overlook's bar and is tended by the spirit of a bartender. Despite all alcohol being removed from the hotel during the winter, the spirit prepares a bourbon on the rocks for Jack. This is Jack's first drink in years. Jack relapses. Demo, much like Jack Torrance, has relapsed. Perhaps the process of being sober is aided through the Valium. which is used to treat symptoms of alcohol withdrawal. But alcohol isn't the relapse Dell is referring to. Dell is talking about relapsing from death, as his nose bleeds shortly after. The light vanishes behind Demo, the very life escaping from his body, severing all ties to the outside world. In this space between life and death, the engineer talks of meeting friends, strangers, even his own grandfather. And what does Dell's grandfather say? It's eternity in there. The very same phrase that the Respawn subject uttered before crumbling to his knees in the first Respawn trial. The camera fades to Medic, in a dark industrial portion of the slaughterhouse. He sees the silhouette of a figure in the distance and goes to examine, and what he enters is the Respawn chamber. Medic envisions Scout in a dark void in the distance and presses towards him. This is the Respawn machine's computer interface. Looks like every time you die, someone has to manually bring you back using this computer interface. The file for Respawn is corrupted, and Medic must make a choice. Behind him, a vision of Scout's mom appears, almost seeming to cast judgment upon him from the distance. In the next scene, Soldier walks into a room that's a reference to another Kubrick film, this time being Dr. Strangelove. The room is modeled after the famous war room set in the film, and fittingly, in this scene, we overhear a recorded phone conversation between Jules Archibald and Plutarch Mann, talking about the Respawn machine and the Gravel Wars. So in order to fully understand the scope of this conversation, I'm gonna have to give you a little lore dump on the TF2 universe. The story of TF2 starts with Zephaniah Mann, owner of Mann Co. and father of two sons, Redmond and Plutarch Mann. The wealthy Zephaniah buys a bunch of land in the New Mexico desert. The land is absolutely useless, nothing but gravel pits and dust bowls. But when he dies, Zephaniah splits the land between the two brothers, and because the two are always in an ongoing feud, they each hire 9 mercenaries to forcefully gain the other's land. This is the story of the Gravel Wars and the foundation for TF2's plot. It seems even in the universe of Emesis Blue, the brothers are still fighting over that useless land, with the 9 mercenaries fighting and dying in their war.
Yes, there's been a slight hiccup, so to speak. The Respawn machine works. It technically works. Plutarch, however... no. You see, that's the problem. They say we've lost about 90% of the test subjects. What? I know you're upset, Plutarch, but the good news is we found about 10 of them that are Respawn compatible. Hold on a moment.
What the hell is going on? He shot himself? Oh, bloody hell. Just throw him in the pit with the others.
Excuse me, 9, Plutarch.
You promised me an army, Archibald.
Well, think of the money you'll save. Mercenaries are very cheap these days. With a Respawn machine on every front line, there will be no worry. You'll surely win this war by the end of the financial year.
That's not allow a Respawn gap.
The Respawn gap? You must be joking. Plutarch, I really must be going now. Listen, would you be interested in a new heart, liver, or spleen? We have about 800,000 corpses on site, and we're not really sure what to do with them.
Oh, I'll take one of each.
I see. I'll put it on the bill. Ta-ta, Plutarch. Redmond, Jules Archibald, I have a proposition for you.
Except it wasn't just 9. During the Respawn testing, 10 people were Respawn compatible, with the rest dying in the machine. But there's only 9 mercenaries. Who was the 10th Respawn compatible person? The man from the intro, the 10th class. On the phone call, you can hear the 10th mercenary shoot himself rather than fight in the war. In the intro, we've seen the never-ending torment this man went through while in the Respawn trials. And if this is what happens to someone who's Respawn compatible, just imagine what happened to the other 90 subjects that died during the testing. The spirit of the 10th class has already appeared in the slaughterhouse, his presence haunting the place where he was tortured to the point of having a picnic. After the man shoots himself, the lines on the colored map begin to fade, until only one red dot is illuminated. New Mexico, the place of the Gravel Wars. Meanwhile, the medic has made his decision, and he decides that despite the corrupted file, he is going to try and revive the Scout. But the file is too corrupted, and the worst happens. The machine begins to reassemble the Scout, and the promise is almost complete before a fatal error occurs. At this point, the Scout and the machine seems to be sentient, as they let out a guttural scream of agony. Once more, we see that vision of blood escaping from the Respawn chamber, just like The Shining. But this time, it's not a vision. The fatal error has caused the machine to agonizingly turn the Scout into liquid mush that floods the chamber, and what remains of him pours out of the respawn chamber. This is what happened during Respawn Trial 4, and it makes sense why Helix would try to censor the tape. Meanwhile, in the war room, the phone call is finished, and Soldier encounters the Sniper, except he's changed. In between his appearances, the Sniper appears to have died from blood loss from his missing leg. And even though for the audience, Sniper's only been dead for less than an hour, to Sniper, it's been much longer than that.
It's longer than you think. I see the other side. It's longer than you think.
His leg is still a stump, most likely due to a respawn malfunction, and he wears a contorted grimace on his face. He's just spent what has felt like an eternity in the respawn machine and spit out into reality, with his time in respawn stasis affecting him physically. As Soldier flees Sniper, he gets shot in the leg, mirroring the same injury Soldier gave to Sniper in a twisted form of irony. After Soldier escapes into the laboratory, Sniper makes a phone call.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit.
Spy is still held captive by the Pyro, who flicks a lighter on and off. The lighter itself isn't menacing, but remember that in order to wake the Spy up, Pyro doused him in gasoline. One lick of a flame is all it would take to send Spy up in flames. The phone rings. On the floor of the room, we see a severed hand, except we've seen this hand before. That is unmistakably the glove of one of the Conager brothers. It also isn't the only time we've seen a Red employee missing an arm. Just like Spy executing his comrades with a revolver, perhaps the Pyro takes some sort of an executor role, torturing, maiming, and killing those that oppose Red, even if they're Red themselves. Using their Invis watch, the Spy has escaped the grasp of Pyro and now fights back by hitting them over the head with the gas passer, proving once and for all that it is viable. Pyro is then shot 3 times in the torso and slinks down over what appears to be the body of Demo, with all limbs violently and sloppily chopped off. It appears every time Demo dies from losing his limbs, he respawns, only to start the process again. Victorious over the Pyro, Spy lights a cigarette using Pyro's lighter before flicking it behind him, mimicking one of Spy's in-game taunts. But what Spy has failed to realize is that the gas canister he hit Pyro over the head with is leaking gasoline, and it trails right back to Spy, who is doused in gasoline himself. We cut back to Medic, who is still trying to mentally process turning his friend into a tidal wave of human soup. Medic has alluded to seeing respawn malfunctions before, and the PTSD of such events is likely why he takes so much Valium. A respawn malfunction happening to his own friend through his own actions has left Medic in a near catatonic state until Scout's baseball slowly rolls over and taps Medic's foot. This baseball has been used multiple points throughout the movie to signify Scout's presence. But where did the ball come from? Under the door of the respawn machine. Inside the machine, Medic hallucinates what appears to be Scout's home, just as empty as the night he entered it. But instead of seeing Scout's mom's body at the end of the hall, he discovers something truly bizarre. In what appears to be another time loop similar to Soldier's encounter with himself, Medic oversees his conversation with Scout in the medical bay. And while this could be written off as a hallucination, he is able to interact with the past by pushing the medical curtain over, turning over the box of VHS tapes that Scout would take a movie from. Medic sees a version of himself with torn eyes and cracked teeth smiling towards himself. He's kneeling over Scout's mom's body, after which he wakes, revealing that the whole sequence was just a dream. The sequence seems to be a guilt-induced dream of him feeling responsible for Scout's death, envisioning himself as a monstrous version of himself. We don't know if Medic is the one behind it, and even in his subconscious, it seems Medic isn't even entirely sure of whether or not he committed the murder. However, if the Medic was truly asleep during this whole sequence, then how was he able to push over the tapes in the operating room? After the Medic wakes up, once more, we see that his eyes are red and blue. That alternate personality is fighting for control once more. In front of Medic stands the Pyro, who has survived their encounter with the spy, smothered in flames. Medic decides to flee into a nearby room, which happens to be a church connected to the respawn machine. At the front of the room is a coffin with candles on it. We've seen this church before. It appeared much earlier in one of Medic's nightmares. Either Medic can predict the future, or he's been here before. He hides in the confession booth. In the other booth, someone hands Medic a cross necklace. This cross necklace is another direct connection to Spy's Disguise, the other Fortress Films short. While mostly a comedic and action-filled short, after the climactic battle ends with Spy being knocked out, the short takes a strange drastic tonal change. He envisions himself in a void with a mechanical version of himself. Already, we can see the similarities to the hallucinations the other mercs have been suffering. And we also see that same motif of red and blue lighting. The Spy wakes up in the Medic's operating room, with a television flickering in the room. To the left of the television, we see a stack of tapes just like the ones from Medic's collection, and among them is Emesis Blue, 4 years before the film would be released. After the Spy hallucinates more, someone steps in to help him. The Blue Medic, wearing the cross necklace, and the same exact uniform as Medic in Emesis Blue. Perhaps the cross being handed to him in the confession booth is a grim reminder of his past. Compared to the grounded and believable universe of Emesis Blue, the wacky, over-the-top cartoonish nature of Spy's Disguise seems out of place in the same universe. But perhaps the events of Spy's Disguise didn't really happen. Perhaps what we see through Spy's eyes isn't actually reality, but a massive hallucination created by a mixture of constant respawns and Valium pills. The Red Engineer Spy thought he had killed is seen alive and well as Spy is driven off at the end, and Spy sees himself flickering from machine to human on the tape, drifting in and out of madness. In this scene, Medic has seen a man driven to absolute madness beyond medical help, something that deeply disturbs him. Now, Medic is the one on the receiving end of the nightmare. While Spy perceived himself as a literal killing machine who slips into madness, Medic acts like a killing machine when he slips. Although, in a much more metaphorical sense, seeing as Spy transforms into a very literal killing machine. Medic puts on the necklace as Pyro grabs them through the confession booth, destroying the booth. Still in flames, Pyro presses their hand against Medic's face, burning into his flesh. Look at the shape of the burn that appears on Medic's face. It's the shape of an M. After following Medic throughout the slaughterhouse, the letter M has been etched into his very skin, just like the movie M, where the letter is used to mark a killer. And after being marked as a killer by Pyro, the Medic gets the upper hand in the fight and decapitates Pyro with their own axe. After Medic kills Pyro, something strange happens. Filling out the church pews is an audience of apparitions in black hoods and white masks, just like the white mask Pyro wears in the film. Who are these figures, and why is there a church directly connected to the respawn machine? Perhaps there's a supernatural element to the respawn machine, not purely science. These hooded apparitions could be an occult-like group calling on unnatural forces to keep the respawn machine functional. Injured, Soldier stumbles into the laboratory. The room is a freezer, and surrounding him are a bunch of pods. And inside the pods, himself. There is a lot of clones of Soldier, specifically Soldier, being frozen, waiting to be unthawed for what purpose we can only theorize. Among the pods, Soldier sees the corpse of Demo. He made the mistake of relapsing and drinking at Dell's bar, and Demo Man has paid the price. Soldier grieves his fallen comrade. In the lore of TF2, the Blue Soldier and Red Demo Man were good friends, and the dynamic the two share in Emesis Blue parallels that of the comics. But Soldier isn't able to grieve long, as the mutated Heavy has caught up with Soldier. In Demo's hand, he holds a grenade, and Soldier uses it to escape from the Heavy. But immediately after, he encounters the Sniper using his rocket launcher against him, a total reversal of their first encounter. While Soldier flees from the Sniper, Archibald is free from his cell and is making a phone call to a man named Goldman.
So what if I made a deal with the old man's brother? The war is their business, and mine is to drag it out for as long as humanly possible. That infernal, unholy contraption is my lifeline, Goldman.
Might be your only way out. I've thought about it, surely, as a last resort, but if I can use it to disappear for a while, it's a chance I'll have to take.
Where am I calling from? That's a stupid question. You know bloody hell where I am.
I heard you've been kidnapped. What's going on?
Kidnapped? I don't know anything about that. Listen very carefully, Goldman. I think there are people trying to kill me. And worse yet, I think this Valium is actually...
Continue this call. Please deposit 5 cents.
Oh, blast.
Archibald has considered using the respawn machine on himself to lay low, so his shady deals with the brothers aren't seen by the public. Archibald, in fact, hasn't been kidnapped at all. He's purposely hiding in the slaughterhouse to keep the eyes of the media off of himself. Archibald also briefly states his distrust in the Valium pills, but he gets cut off before he can finish his sentence. Next to Archibald is a big crate with pill bottles inside of it, and on the label isn't the Valium that the mercenaries have been taking, but instead it reads Emesis diazepam. Valium and diazepam are one and the same, but the brand of the pill makes all of the difference. The mercenaries are being misled by taking blue Valium, because they're actually taking Emesis diazepam, and it looks like this brand of pill isn't your typical diazepam. Archibald fumbles for a coin to put into the phone machine, but it rolls under a doorway. Archibald lifts the door, and whatever he sees, it deeply terrifies him. He runs away from the scene, allowing us to see where he is. The execution floor, with an electric chair. The respawn machine, the church, an electric chair, whatever this place is, it is most definitely not an animal slaughterhouse. Archibald flees into Spy, who's been tracking down Archibald, and we see the result of Spy's horrific burns.
It's me, Jules. Oh, thank God, Corporal, you've come to save me. Have I? I've always been the one to save you, Archie. I did your dirty work and hid it from everyone, and look what it did to me. My God! Who is there to save me, Jules? You've never cared about anyone but yourself. Corporal, no! Please, for God's sake! Well, there's no one here to protect you now. But I've given you everything you wanted. And I'm giving you exactly what you deserve.
Still running from Sniper, Soldier hides in a room and accidentally activates a film projector.
I'm on? Alright, fine. Hello again. If you're watching this, then I can say with complete certainty that you have survived respawn compatibility. Congratulations. If you're confused, allow me to explain. Before you were lawfully executed by the state, you signed a contract effectively donating your mortal remains to a medical trial. The good news is you're not on death row anymore, since you're technically already dead. Which also means you are now company property. But fear not. As promised, you all have a new job waiting for you when you get out. You are now 10 of the strongest mercenaries money can buy, and your sacrifice will reward you in time. I'll see you all on the other side. Oh, hell!
After the film ends, Soldier sees a collection of photographs on a countertop. Among the photos we see are someone preparing Soldier for something with a line of soldiers behind him. A photo of Soldier in an electric chair, 2 photos of failed respawn trials, and the final picture is Soldier being executed by Jules Archibald himself, and a direct nod to a photo of the execution of a Vietnamese soldier during the Vietnam War. Now, the puzzle pieces are beginning to fit together. Conacher's slaughterhouse isn't a slaughterhouse for animals, it never was. This is a slaughterhouse for mercenaries, killing them repeatedly in the hopes of them being respawn compatible.
You really want to die for that fat bastard? Don't you want to die for something worth dying for? Do you have any idea how long I've waited for this? Longer than you think.
Once more, the sniper says longer than you think, one of the 2 quotes that has been repeatedly coming up. And once more, I'll say that we'll get to that later. But what we see in the present is that Medic has used Pyro's head to peek around the corner to trick Sniper. He swings the axe into Sniper's chest in a way very reminiscent of Jack Torrance in The Shining. These are both characters who have been slipping more and more into madness. Jack is driven to madness by the Overlook. Medic is driven to madness by the Slaughterhouse. The line between Medic's personalities is blurring. As he kills Sniper, he's bathed in orange light, whereas at other times before he commits an act of violence, he's lit equal parts red and blue. We've also seen the exact same head trick used before with the head of Scout's mom, drawing a parallel between the 2 murders. Perhaps Medic really was the one responsible for the murder of Scout's mom. The film projector activates once more, and suddenly the conflict inside Medic is brewing again, that internal war between red and blue within himself. And what elicits this reaction? Emesis Pharmaceuticals. The tape plays what looks like lifeless bodies traveling along in a void, reminiscent of a blood vessel. Medic is petrified in terror at what he sees, just like his interaction with the plague doctor at the beginning of the film. Like a deer in headlights, Medic doesn't even see the figure approach from behind him and knock him out. Spy has caught up with Soldier and Medic. The 6th chapter of Emesis Blue is titled Katabasis. Katabasis is a word that is used to describe a journey into the underworld. Possibly, the most famous story of Katabasis is the story of Dante's Inferno, where a man must go through all 7 circles of hell with his guide and mentor Virgil, with the layers becoming increasingly punishing and grotesque. It's fair to say that all of the characters of Emesis Blue have been through their own personal hell. Medic has had his best friend killed and is losing his grip on reality. Spy has had his flesh charred from his body, and the soldier has been wounded and had his PTSD from the war haunt him in the slaughterhouse. And Demoman died. But for as bad as their trip into the slaughterhouse has been, Soldier's Katabasis isn't complete. We haven't reached the lowest levels of hell yet. The chapter starts with the 3 sitting at a table in the execution floor. Spy forces the 3 to play Russian roulette for their lives. While Soldier and Spy survive, Medic loses.
I'm at a payphone trying to...
With Russian roulette complete, Spy lets Soldier live and Spy goes to escape the slaughterhouse. Soldier is left to wander on his own. Soldier wanders into the execution room and retrieves his rocket launcher, where he also finds the dead body of Archibald strapped to the electric chair. Soldier wanders to the gate that Archibald opened earlier. Archibald was shocked and horrified by what he saw behind this gate. Soldier's reaction is similar. Beyond this gate is an abyss of dead bodies, forming a chasm, much like the one in the film room. A hellish red light emits from the room. However, something is approaching from behind Soldier, pounding the metal door. Presumably, the mutated Heavy looking for vengeance. With no other option to flee, the soldier must begin his Katabasis. Inside the pit, we see just how many times the mercenaries have died. Thousands upon thousands of lifeless corpses reside in the pit. Their bodies lie in bizarre piles and form arches in a hellish sculpture of corpses. A truck drives through the bodies, a disposal crew in charge of moving the bodies. In Archibald's phone call with Plutarch, he mentions that during the respawn trials alone, they accumulated 800,000 dead bodies. They have the same amount of dead bodies as the population of San Francisco. And this was even before the Gravel Wars started. And all of those lifeless corpses wind up in this abyss, heaved into dump trucks and driven to God knows where. And if you look closely, you can only see one man's body among the piles. Soldier. This man has been killed and revived more than any of the other mercenaries. But why? Why do his corpses litter the underground chambers of the slaughterhouse? Why is his body frozen in the laboratory? My theory is that clones of Soldier are being mass-produced to be sold to third parties, such as the army. While the other mercenaries are good for fighting in the Gravel War, Soldier's military experience and willingness to follow orders would make him the best candidate for military warfare. Millions of clones of Soldier fighting in overseas war. Soldier is able to climb into the back of the body-hauling truck and reclaim his rocket launcher, just as more bodies are dumped on top of him. As Soldier is riding among the bodies, he envisions the Demo Man saying, "Our true enemy has yet to reveal itself." This quote is from The Godfather Part 3, but was famously used in The Sopranos. Soldier's outlook on the Gravel War has changed. He came to this slaughterhouse to free Archibald, but not only is Archibald dead, he's seen the inhuman agony and suffering he's had to go through at his hands. The entire film, he's been battling the mutated mercenaries, but just as his subconscious states, they aren't his true enemy. Soldier's true enemy is whoever is in charge of this operation. Eventually, the truck tips over, and the path leads Soldier to a bizarre room. It's a cave-like room. Down the center is a bridge. A chunk in the middle of the bridge is gone, but on the other side of the bridge is an illuminated staircase. Below the bridge, however, is a ravine so deep you can't see the bottom. This set piece is a reference to the Lars von Trier film titled The House That Jack Built. Interestingly, this film is also the story of a sociopathic murderer named Jack. In The House That Jack Built, Jack is a serial killer who kills people over the course of 12 years, trying to justify the killings in his mind by calling the killings an art form. At the end of the film, Jack escapes into hell, and who else to guide his Katabasis than Virgil, the man that guided Dante through the 9 circles of hell. At the end of the movie, Virgil concludes his tour of hell by leading him to a room just like Emesis Blue. A chasm runs down the middle of the room, with a bridge leading from one side to the other. However, the bridge has been broken for a long time, and there's a gap in the middle of the bridge. Across the bridge also lies an illuminated staircase, and Virgil tells Jack it leads out of hell and right into heaven. But below the bridge, the deepest recesses of hell, the places of hell that even Jack, a sociopathic serial killer, isn't evil enough to deserve. Virgil offers Jack a choice. Either Jack can come back with Virgil and accept his place in eternity at a higher circle of hell, or Jack can attempt to climb around the room across the chasm and step up the stairway to heaven, cheating Satan himself. However, if Jack slips while climbing and falls into the abyss, he'll fall into the lowest depths of hell, filled with the most unimaginable torture for eternity. Throughout the scene, a high-pitched ringing can be heard from the bottom of the pit. This ringing is millions of tortured souls crying out in anguish, a cacophony so loud and homogeneous, it only comes out as a high-pitched buzz. In Emesis Blue, you can hear the same high-pitched ring out from the cavern as well. Jack knows that most gamblers quit before hitting it big, so Jack tries to climb around the chasm, knowing no one's ever done it successfully. And it's here where Jack falls into the abyss to be tortured at the lowest level of hell forever. Now, Soldier has been offered the same choice. Either he can walk back where he came from, back to the endless corpses, and accept his circle of hell, or he can cross the chasm and maybe achieve something better. However, Soldier has something that Jack didn't. Soldier knows how to rocket jump. But just as he lines up his rocket jump, he looks backward to see the spirit of the 10th class in the light of the staircase, as if it's beckoning him to cross the chasm. Using Heavy to jump off of, Soldier has crossed the chasm. They can climb up the stairs and make their way to a better place. They cheated hell. However, a third party has not deemed it so. As he turns around, Soldier is shot in the chest with a revolver by an unknown assailant. Just like Jack, Soldier falls into the pit, where a greater evil resides. Soldier's descent into hell will continue. Instead of fire and brimstone, though, Soldier falls into a pit of water. And inside this water, we see a glimpse of the 10th class, his presence continually haunting Soldier. Soldier has escaped from the basement and onto land. However, where he ends up is very strange. He's in a rainy alleyway. He looks towards the rain gutter pipe and sees the water is traveling backwards inside of it, as if time is running backwards. He glances outwards and sees Medic and Scout driving in their ambulance just as they had before. But that ambulance ride was a long time ago, and they're both dead now. And when the ambulance has fully passed, we see the spy's car, with Soldier staring at him through the window. Time has strangely looped again, with him encountering his past self. The man Soldier saw in the rain at the beginning of the film really was himself from the future, and when Spy told Soldier not to hurt himself, he unknowingly predicted what was happening. Time loops have happened multiple times now, first with Soldier throwing the crowbar to himself, then with Medic pushing over the tapes, and now with Soldier seeing himself in the rain. It's as if reality itself is being distorted around the mercenaries. He envisions the car being exploded, which shocks him back into the present. He's finally made it out of the slaughterhouse, and to celebrate, he references the Shawshank Redemption. Soldier flees using his injured leg, but he can only manage a slow shuffle as the building crumbles behind him. The absolute carnage unleashed in the slaughterhouse has taken its toll on the building, and the whole thing is burning to the ground. As Soldier escapes, the mutated Heavy is still alive. He's taken a direct grenade, a rocket to the chest, a screwdriver to the eye, has survived his encounter with the mutated Scout, and has come out of it alive, hungry for vengeance against the man who turned him into a hulking beast. Nothing can keep him down. Time flashes forward, and we see that Soldier has survived and physically recovered from his time at the slaughterhouse.
Mr. Doe, my name is Agent Stemmons. You don't know me, but I know all about you. I'm here to debrief you on the situation. Kanaga's slaughterhouse is a dead zone. There's nothing left of it, and I think that's for the best. It was actually scheduled for demolition months ago, but Governor Archibald prevented that from happening. He had his secrets, Mr. Doe, but you discovered something that we find deeply disturbing. Something that threatens the foundation of this company. Whatever it was you saw inside Kanaga's slaughterhouse, you are not to speak of it with anyone. Not a soul.
It turns out that despite being former Red territory, Jules Archibald was the sole person responsible for keeping the slaughterhouse up and running. Despite being backed by Blue monetarily and seemingly leading Blue, Jules Archibald was spinelessly playing both sides of the gravel war for profit. Soldier knows all of this, briefly flashing back to the photo of him being executed, and Soldier is infuriated. Soldier isn't the only survivor of the events of the slaughterhouse either. Spy has survived his burns and is being strung up on a hospital bed, still smoking his cigarette. His pose mirrors that of a real gore photo taken of a burn victim, making the scene even more macabre. The screen fades to black as the funeral for Jules Archibald is prepared. The camera fades in on Archibald's funeral. Soldier's leg is still injured from the bullet he took in the slaughterhouse, but otherwise, he's healthy. In his hand, Soldier holds a card. It's a script given to him by the government. It reads, "We regret to inform that Jules Archibald was killed following a confrontation with his kidnapper, discovered to be the chief medical advisor of Blue, Dr. Fritz Ludwig. Mr. Archibald was shot once by Dr. Ludwig before turning the gun on himself. Pause for effect. We were forced to evacuate when a fire had consumed Conager Slaughterhouse. We believe that Dr. Ludwig became mentally unstable and committed several other murders before his death. Despite this, we are adamant that this cult will be brought to justice." The government is trying to keep what happened at the slaughterhouse under wraps. They don't want word of the respawn machine and the government's connections to it being leaked, so they're pinning all of the events on Medic to cover it up. As Soldier looks at the script, the Spy meets Blutarch Man himself. Although Spy's entire body has been charred beyond recognition, he still remains alive, although now he uses a white mask to cover his facial deformities. Spy's appearance now mirrors that of the Pyro, and he wears the same white mask the spirits can be seen wearing in the church. These white masks signify being part of the cult behind the respawn machine, and after his time in the slaughterhouse, Spy has indoctrinated himself into this cult of the respawn machine. The scene also confirms that Blutarch was responsible for the assassination of JFK, which is a huge revelation for the TF2 universe. As Blutarch takes his seat in the pew, we can see someone very familiar.
Funerals are an absolute waste of money.
Like war?
Blutarch's employee looks and sounds exactly like the Scout. Even if the respawn machine in the slaughterhouse is down, we've seen that Helix has been cloning and storing clones of the various mercenaries, and it looks like a clone of Scout is being used as Blutarch's employee. The clone states that war is a waste of money, and Scout is doomed to fight in the gravel war for eternity. The other side of the war is here too. Redmond Man, Blutarch's brother, has also come to Jules' funeral.
We are here to honor the memory of Jules Archibald. And his loss, I'm sure, has come as a shock to all of us. Jules carried Binder's Lane for as long as I can remember. And though he's gone, we won't forget the sacrifices he made for this company. Of course, with the accolades out of the way, I'm sure you all want to know what happened. As you know, Jules was recently abducted from his home by some kind of underground cult. The rescue operation had gone awry. However, myself and my colleague managed to escape. Jules died. Perhaps my colleague could explain what happened. I apologize.
Soldier is a man that's followed orders the entire movie, even questioning why Medic would kill the Conagers without orders. But now, after what Soldier has seen and went through at the slaughterhouse, he's directly come face to face with his true enemy, the men responsible for his agony, torture, and thousands of deaths. He holds a grenade intent on taking himself out along with everyone responsible for the respawn machine. But Soldier doesn't need to use the grenade.
So, in Archibald's death, and in accordance to his will, I will be taking his place as chairman of the board to end this treason and corruption once and for all.
Earlier in the film, we see Medic envision himself trapped in a coffin, and now he's been hiding himself in one, waiting for the right moment to strike. Even after being shot in the head, whatever force is compelling Medic has brought him back from death once more, and now he's more blood-hungry than ever. His face is pale, gaunt, and emotionless. As the shocked crowd runs from the church, we see the Plague Doctor amongst the chaos, like he's admiring what's just happened in the church. As Medic steps out of the church, a black hearse drives off. The Plague Doctor's business at the funeral has finished. The shootout spills into the streets of the city, where Soldier passes the mysterious briefcase to Medic. On the road, Blutarch's car crashes, and Soldier approaches the wreck. Inside, Blutarch is still alive and begs Soldier for help. But Soldier doesn't. As Blutarch's body bleeds in the car, he's bathed in red light. Red and blue this whole movie has been used to symbolize conflict, and by shooting Blutarch, that conflict may finally end. The gravel war is finally over, and there's no need to respawn the mercenaries again. Elsewhere, Medic is still fleeing from the police. He pulls the driver out of a nearby ambulance, and it seems like there's still a small sliver of sanity left in Medic's mind, as he spares the ambulance driver, instead shooting out with the police in a scene reminiscent of Reservoir Dogs. And he gets away in the ambulance. As Medic escapes, Redmond comes to Blutarch's car, bathed in blue light.
Good gravel! I won! I outlived you, brother! I am the last man standing!
Medic envisions Scout in the passenger seat, reminiscing on a time only a few days ago where they drove along these same streets in the ambulance, back when the two were still alive. Although his violent alternate ego has fully taken control of Medic, there's still enough humanity within himself left to have another guilt and drug-fueled hallucination of Scout silently judging him from the passenger seat. Later, Medic is driving down an empty road, with enough time passed since the shootout for him to get dressed back into his standard outfit, complete with the cross necklace from earlier. Wherever he's going, it's a long drive with Medic seeming to blink in and out of consciousness while driving, until he winds up at Dell's bar, the crossroads between life and death.
You look lost, stranger.
I am.
Where are you headed?
I don't know.
Nearest town's back the other way.
That's not where I'm going.
So where are you going?
Do you have a phone?
No.
I think I'm going to be sick.
Restroom's in the back.
Medic doesn't know where he's going, But on some level, he does. He asks for a phone, but in Del's bar, there's no contact with the outside world. The world of the living. As Medic goes to enter the bathroom, two blurred hard-hatted figures can be made out in the background. One is smoking, and the other plays piano. These are the Conager brothers. He enters the bathroom and shuts the door behind him. And it's here where I'm going to tell you a story that may seem really out of place at first, but it's related, I swear. The first time I watched Emesis Blue was in an Airbnb with friends and fellow YouTubers, and as we were watching the movie, every time we saw the letter M on the wall, one of us would say, "That's the Emesis Blue," and we would all burst out laughing. Flash forward to the next day, and I went out to eat with them. And after the meal, we went to the bathroom to wash our hands, and when we got to the restroom, there was a big M on the door, and I jokingly called it the Emesis door, and we all laughed. However, in that brain-dead moment, I think I was actually onto something. Medic for the whole movie has been having premonitions of the future, and he keeps coming across the letter M scrawled all over the walls. Del's bar is the crossroads between life and death, and while the character can never fully make out what they've seen in the stasis between life and death, blurry details remain. Perhaps the letter M scrawled on the walls of the slaughterhouse was a warning of Del's bar, because when Medic closes the restroom door, written upon it is a singular letter, M. Throughout the movie, we've been led to believe that the M was marking Medic as a murderer, and this whole time, it might have been marking him for death instead. The inside of the bathroom is another reference to The Shining, furthering the idea that this place is between life and death. Compared to the rustic, worn bar Del's is, the bright red, spotless bathroom is almost uncanny in comparison. This place is unnatural, ethereal, and unsettling. Outside of the bathroom, the man puts down the newspaper enough to see that he has no eyes. Just like Maynard. The man pulls out a phone and makes a call. While we don't know for sure, I believe Del might be calling his brother in the past to tell him about Del's disappearance and what would be another time loop. Del using the phone also means he must have some sort of connection to the outside world, despite being dead. There's a knocking on the bathroom door as Medic stares at himself in the mirror. On the basin of the sink is blood, and Medic begins to down the Valium pills once more. After he takes the pills, he spits out a tooth. This situation mirrors the exact dream Scout was describing at the beginning of the movie. It's here where Medic discovers a seam in the label of the pills and pulls it, revealing the entire time he thought he was taking blue Valium, he was actually taking something else instead. Emesis diazepam, from 1963. The events of the slaughterhouse took place in 1968. Not only has Medic been taking the wrong medication, he's been taking medication from the wrong period of time. Something has seriously gone wrong with the flow of time. Medic's reflection in the mirror is gone. Instead, the violent, blood-hungry side of him stands behind him. Then, a flush and a whistle. Jules whistles in the Hall of the Mountain King while washing his hands. The same song the murderer whistles in M. Not only that, but Jules Archibald has somehow found himself in the space between life and death. On the phone call, Jules mentions using the respawn machine as a last resort, and appears he's gone through with that idea, stuck in the same respawn stasis as the other mercenaries.
Hey, Doc.
We see how Medic wound up at Del's bar. He crashed into a telephone pole while asleep at the wheel. Earlier, Medic had a premonition of this too. He envisioned himself with torn eyes, a cracked teeth forming a smile, and his mutilated body in the car looks exactly like this vision. Besides Medic's corpse, the briefcase beside him is cracked open, and a glowing red light emits from it, and what appears to be a darker red orb pulsating inside of it. Once more, we see the nightmarish vision of the bodies in the void. And then, a respawn machine set ablaze activates. The door opens, and we can see the silhouette of Medic, back in reality after his visit to Del's bar. The end. Alright, so your first reaction after watching Emesis Blue for the first time is probably something along the lines of, "My head hurts, what did I just watch?" It's a film that plays its answers close to its chest, and therefore it's hard to grasp everything immediately. What's in the briefcase? What's the significance of the pills? Who's the plague doctor? And why is time so non-linear? These are some of the bigger questions that I intend to answer, but I think it's important to know that the movie is intentionally vague, and my interpretation of events may not be accurate. But I feel like I have a firm grasp on the film at this point, and I have explanations for the bigger questions it leaves you with. Starting off with the Emesis diazepam, The pills that shocked and horrified Medic when he realized what he's been taking. The pills the mercenaries were led to believe was standard Valium, but is implied multiple times throughout the film to be more than just that. Months before the release of Emesis Blue, Fortress Films put out a teaser for the film that also acts as an advertisement to the Emesis diazepam pills the mercs are taking. The promo is only a minute and a half long, so I'll play the video in its entirety and come back to analyze it once it's finished. It looks like the diazepam is being given to the mercs under the guise of sleeping pills that also helps with other ailments. Things like anxiety and insomnia, something we see the characters of the movie struggle with due to constant nightmares. However, it's important to note that the diazepam also helps with schizophrenia. Throughout the entire film, the mercenaries have been suffering from both auditory and visual hallucinations. And in Scout's diagnosis, he's been stated to be suffering from schizophrenia-like symptoms. Even in the promo, it warns that if you suffer from drowsiness, memory loss, and visual/auditory hallucinations, to see a doctor immediately. These aren't side effects of diazepam, these are side effects of schizophrenia. In his medical report, Medic diagnosed Scout with brain atrophy, a condition that causes the brain to shrink as connections between nerve cells in your brain disconnect. The process of repeatedly going through the respawn machine has had a long-term effect on the mercenaries' brains, leaving them all with brain atrophy, schizophrenia, and possibly other mental conditions that affect their everyday life. These pills aren't designed to help the mercenaries sleep. They're designed to try and counter the mental effects of the respawn machine. I think this is what Medic realizes when he peels the label off the Valium. He's most likely going to come back, and when he does, his brain will be in even worse condition than he was before as his mind starts to rot in his living body. But what inside the respawn machine could be causing such mind-altering effects? What drives the people who use it to insanity, just as the people who read The King in Yellow are driven to madness? Well, to answer that question, I believe it's time to pay off something that I've been building up to for a while now. Throughout the movie, there are two specific quotes used multiple times that you should recognize. It's eternity in there, and longer than you think. Up until now, I haven't fully delved into them and told you what they mean. These quotes are directly taken from a short story written by Stephen King called The John. It's a short read, only an hour long, and I highly recommend it. However, it's not necessary for the purpose of this video. The story presents a hypothetical universe where teleportation became as mundane as air travel. You could teleport to Mars instantly in the same way one might take a plane to another country. The story centers around the Oates family as they sit in a teleportation port awaiting for their teleportation, called a jaunt. However, there's a catch. During the early testing for jaunting, live rats were used as test subjects. However, every time a rat passed through, the rat would be catatonic and die shortly after, unless the rat was put to sleep, in which case, the rats would pass through just fine, healthy as can be. Scientists also tested the jaunt on sleeping adults. Just as predicted, the sleeping adults teleported perfectly and were healthy afterward. However, one of the subjects was sent through jaunting wide awake, and he responded much differently. The subject's hair had turned snow white. His face had not changed in any physical way. It was not lined or jowly or wasted, but it gave the impression of great, almost incredible age. The subject shuffled out of the portal, his eyes bulging blankly, his mouth twitching, his hands splayed out in front of him. What happened? One of the scientists shouted. It was the only question the subject had a chance to answer. It's eternity in there. The time comes for the Oates family to jaunt. The employees come through with an oxygen mask hooked up to a canister that will knock them out. But what the family does not know is that the son holds his breath and pretends to sleep. The family passes through the teleportation process, the son passing through wide awake. And when they get to the other side, the son of the family has changed. The old young legs twitched and quivered, claw hands beat and twisted, danced in the air. Abruptly, they descended, and the thing that had once been his son began to claw at its face. Longer than you think, Dad, it cackled. Longer than you think. Held my breath when they gave me the gas. Wanted to see. I saw. Longer than you think. Cackling and screeching, the thing on the jaunt couch suddenly clawed its own eyes out. Blood gouted. The recovery room was an aviary of screaming voices now. Longer than you think, Dad. I saw. Long jaunt. Longer than you think. It said other things before the jaunt attendants were finally able to bear it away, rolling its couch swiftly away as it screamed and clawed at the eyes that had seen the unseeable forever and ever. It said other things, and then it began to scream. But Mark Oates didn't hear it, because by then, he was screaming himself. And that is where the story of the jaunt ends, and the terrifying process of jaunting bears a resemblance to that of the respawn machine. When you die in reality, your soul enters the stasis dimension, and in there, it forces your mind to go through what feels like an eternity, driving you mad, before spinning you back into reality. When you're in reality, most of your time in the respawn gap is forgotten, leaving only the physical effects. Except for one character. The sniper seems to fully remember his time in stasis each time he dies. He leaves a tape recorder with a message repeating he's seen the other side, and when confronting Soldier, the sniper repeats the quote.
Longer than you think.
The way the respawn machine has physically affected Sniper mirrors that of the son in the story. After staring into the abyss for infinity, Sniper's mouth has morphed into a twisted grimace. The jaunt-like process of respawning is causing the minds of the mercs to deteriorate, something the Emesis diazepam can't even fully prevent. Which leads us to the question of who is the Plague Doctor, and what's his place in all of this? It's his actions at the beginning of the movie that lead all of the mercenaries to the slaughterhouse, and it's him who revels in the chaos at the funeral before driving off in a black hearse. The most prevalent theory I've heard is that the Plague Doctor is an alternate personality of Medic, a sort of Jekyll and Hyde dynamic. But it doesn't line up for these two to be the same character at the same time. Take for instance near the beginning of the film. Soldier smokes a cigarette outside of the car as Medic drives past in his ambulance. Directly after, the Plague Doctor pulls up to the curb in the black hearse. If the Medic was the Plague Doctor, he couldn't be driving the hearse and the ambulance at the same time. This thing is a completely different entity than the Medic and exists outside of his scope. But none of this explains who the Plague Doctor is. What we can know for certain is that the Plague Doctor wants the mercs to go to the slaughterhouse. I believe it was the Plague Doctor with the assistance of Pyro that killed Scout's mom and kidnapped Scout, and his pursuit of the briefcase is what leads the mercenaries to the slaughterhouse. But why? Because the Plague Doctor knows that by sending all of the mercenaries to the slaughterhouse, they'll destroy the place, and with it, the respawn machine. The Plague Doctor revels in the violence at the funeral because it means Jules and the Mann brothers behind the respawn machine are finally going to die. This entity has a grudge against the respawn machine and those behind it, and seems to have supernatural properties. I believe the Plague Doctor is the spirit of the 10th class, seen at the beginning of the movie being tortured relentlessly through various trials. He is set on fire, had his eyes removed, gone through unspeakable trauma, and in between it all, needs to spend an eternity in respawn stasis only to die again. He shot himself on the phone call in an attempt to end the suffering, but is only wound up half dead, as a wandering spirit. He wants to get even. He wants to destroy the respawn machine. There's visual evidence to back this up too. For instance, watch what happens in the Emesis diazepam trailer as we catch a glimpse of the Plague Doctor. Black shadows crawl up the walls like tendrils. Now watch what happened to the 10th class during respawn trial number 4. The same shadow tendrils crawl up the wall. The only other character the Plague Doctor assumes a different appearance for is the Soldier. In the photos Soldier finds in the film room, we see a picture of the two of them standing side by side, most likely in preparation for the respawn trials. His spirit haunts Soldier 2 in the halls of the slaughterhouse because that's where they met and knew each other. However, I wouldn't completely throw out the theory that the Plague Doctor is an alternate personality of Medic. At the beginning of the film, it's made apparent the Plague Doctor has been haunting Medic in his nightmares. And during Soldier's vision of the war, he sees the Plague Doctor and Medic playing chess, a mind game trying to outsmart the other opponent. Throughout the entire movie, Medic is seen fighting an internal conflict in his mind, represented by red and blue. I believe it's fair to say that the Medic represents blue, and in Medic's mind, when he has a nightmare of the Plague Doctor, the scene is bathed in red. So the Plague Doctor represents red. It's only when Medic is either killed or unconscious where they give in and the Plague Doctor fully takes control over Medic's body. I believe that the spirit of the 10th class is possessing Medic's body, which explains how Medic can transform from someone who fails at hand-to-hand combat to becoming a killing machine after dying. It's not the same person at the wheel. Earlier, in Medic's vision of being inside a coffin, he's trapped while the Plague Doctor is outside observing him. This shot is a direct representation of what's happening to Medic. He's trapped in his own mind, unable to move, while the Plague Doctor possesses him and has full control of his body in the outside world. But there's one item that the Plague Doctor fixates over, reclaiming it several times throughout the movie, and that is the briefcase. But what is in the briefcase and why is it so important to the Plague Doctor? Considering my theory that the Plague Doctor is a victim of the respawn machine trying to get revenge and have it shut down, I believe that whatever is in the briefcase is a vital element to the respawn process. Earlier, I mentioned the briefcase in this film plays a similar role to that of Pulp Fiction, a plot device to move the story forward. I also mentioned how one of the most prevailing fan theories is that the briefcase contains the soul of the crime boss Marcellus Wallace. Perhaps the suitcase could contain the very souls of the mercenaries, a vital part of the respawn process. There's certainly a superstitious element to the respawn machine. The church and cult-like figures in it nearly confirms that. What if Helix Tech is holding the souls inside of the briefcase so that when they die, they are caught in respawn stasis? In the ambulance after Medic crashed, we can see the inside of the briefcase. A red glow emits from the crack. Much earlier in the film, as Soldier and Demo fight the zombified mercs, we can see a hole in the zombie soldier's torso, and from inside, a bright red light pours out. That red light could be the very soul of Soldier, stuck in a dead, decaying body. Inside the actual briefcase, we're presented with the image of bodies flowing along a path in a red void. The void represents the tortured souls of the mercenaries floating inside the void forever. But none of what I've said so far is an answer to the biggest question and most head-scratching part of the film. At several points, characters are able to interact with their past selves, and the entire movie has a non-linear flow of time. At the beginning of the movie, we are explicitly told it takes place during 1968, yet when Medic peels the label off the Valium, the bottle says 1963. One might think these instances of looping time are just a side effect of the schizophrenia the mercenaries are suffering from. But they are able to physically interact with their future and past selves during these instances, whether that be through throwing a crowbar at them or pushing over a box of tapes. As Medic and Scout walk out of the operating room, the door swings open from behind them. This is not a hallucination. At several points in the movie, characters seem to be able to predict the future as well. Medic has a nightmare vision of the same church he would fight to death with Pyro in, and also predicts he'll turn Scout into human soup, almost as if he's been through this before. My theory is that it all ties back to the respawn machine. We already know that there are unnatural forces that keep the machine running, and the intense effect it has on those that use it. But what if its effects aren't only on the mercs, but the world around it? This would explain how the mercenaries are able to physically interact with their past and future, because time is being warped by the presence of the respawn machine. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that the entire movie of Emesis Blue is one giant repeating cycle, with Medic respawning at the end of the movie to start the cycle again. If this isn't the first time the characters have experienced this series of events, it would explain why Medic is able to see events that happen in the future. But if characters retain memories of past loops, wouldn't they realize that they're stuck in a time loop? Well, unfortunately for the mercenaries, the entire film, they're being given pills that cause memory loss. Soldier, the only character to survive till the end of the film, and the only character who doesn't take the pills, is the only character who gets to move on from the end of each time loop. The rest of the characters, the mercenaries, Archibald, and the Conager brothers, are all stuck in the perpetual cycle of respawning into the time loop, dying, and waiting an eternity to repeat this cycle. It's longer than you think. It's eternity in there. These characters are forever fated to repeat the events of the slaughterhouse for infinity. their souls drifting in an endless void. At the beginning of this video, I talked about the idea of infinite life and infinite death, and how both are torturous in their own right. But the characters of Emesis Blue have the worst of both. Their minds are literally melting through the turmoil, but they can't escape. No matter what they do, Medic will always end up in the bathroom at Dell's bar. To the audience, Emesis Blue is a horror movie based on a beloved game. But to the characters inside of the film, it's a hopeless, never-ending hell.
Fortnite Battle Pass.